Chairs.
I'm not sure.
Okay, I'll find out.
Yeah, go find out.
Hi.
No, I guess you and I can banter about. He just texted and he just left the west side, so he probably won't be here for 30, 40 minutes. So that's fine.
I ran out of words so fast to get here.
Yeah. So.
Well, there you go.
Cliff, this is Greg Davis.
Oh, well, hello, Greg Davis. Sorry, my hands are all full. How you doing?
Nice to meet
Good
you.
to meet you too, Greg. And, Greg.
Yes, sir.
Your relationship with, Justin?
I'm his brother.
Oh, good call.
I'm kidding.
That would be kind of funny, wouldn't it?
Justin works with me on some projects.
Yeah, this is Houston Greg.
Oh, Houston,
Greg.
hello.
Yeah.
How are you?
Fine.
What's your relation to Justin?
Well, we've been friends for a very long time, but I originally interviewed him for my documentary, Ringer's Lord of the Fans. And since then, he and I have worked together on a lot of fan events, and now he's on staff with the OneRing.net, helping.
Is One Ring your
That's my baby.
That's
Yeah.
your baby. I love it.
Oh, thanks.
How's it going?
Fantastic. Better than fantastic.
That's great.
Cliff
I'm
just
not.
got back, a week ago from New Zealand. He was on set.
I'm not prone to overstatement, am I? That's fucking fantastic.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I mean, what a phenomenon.
It's getting bigger. I can feel the energy. So yeah, he just texted.
Is it okay if I sit here, or you? I don't.
Yeah.
Am I gonna distract you?
No, we have people watch every once.
What is Eastman's relationship with the publication of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse? I mean, all the artwork is Simon Bisley, and I know Simon's work very, very well. I've followed him for decades, but I looked everywhere on the heavy metal website. I didn't see Kevin.
They sent me the trailer too.
A trailer?
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, tomorrow is the launch date of the book. So if you've got a trailer, I'd love to see it before he gets here.
Okay, so we have two trailers. It's a War of the Worlds animated show. That I guess he's involved in.
Really?
It's on Cartoon Network. I mean, this is legit. War of
Really?
the Worlds. Like official license from the H.G. Wells thing.
Oh, okay. So
that's
there's a
the-
whole redo of War of the Worlds without Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
And
then Four Horsemen. Here's the trailer.
so it's not just the book that Simon. It's based on the book that Simon Bisley is doing.
Yeah. And then Heavy Metal.
Yeah, they're publishing.
So this is the trailer. So he's just a publisher. He owns Heavy Metal.
Okay, that's the scoop. Okay,
Yeah.
that's the connection.
Him and his wife.
Okay, wow.
His wife was the model for the female character in the animated movie.
Yeah, that is the word. Buxom, décolletage.
So
A lot of other
Décolletage. How's the deck?
So
So this is CGI animated? Wow, this is like the spirits within. This is like a Final Fantasy.
This is legit. Yeah. So I figure we'll just open the show, and we'll chat it up for a bit, and then when he gets here, you guys can converse for like 10 minutes, and then we'll work this into the trailer. You saw the questions from the Facebook page?
Yes, I did. I saw quite a few of them.
Okay. Do you have those top of mind, or?
Yeah, I'm gonna review them again. But,
Okay. I have
there's-
this chat room on the iPad, so you guys.
there's some people who are really, really caustic and very angry still about
Michael Bay.
about Michael Bay's announcements about making the Turtles aliens.
Yeah. So I'm gonna. So
Yeah.
when he gets here, before we.
Almost like changing the origin story of the characters,
Yeah.
but not changing them. Evidently, Kevin wants it to be that way.
Right. Originally, if you read his original comics,
Yeah.
they were aliens.
You mean the original ones that were only limited to 3,000
Teenage Ninja Turtles. Mutant was added when Hasbro got involved.
You mean other?
Actually, this is a good.
It wasn't Hasbro. It was the other toy company.
Mattel.
No.
Kenner. Something. Anyway.
I just read this morning. So this is a feature film,
I don't know what it is. They just sent this trailer without any.
or is it a limited series or a web series?
It's quite a long trailer.
It is.
Four Horsemen. This is what they're debuting at Comic-Con, I think.
Yeah.
Book one.
Sign up
No.
Disney.
So that was a CG trailer for a comic book. I don't understand. That trailer cost $100. Okay, so
Really? So this might not be related to any televised property at all? It's just an animated trailer for a new book.
So maybe talk about
That's,
that.
well, that's innovative.
I asked him yesterday, is any topic off limits, and he said no. And he knows how to skirt around the whole closet contractual silence clauses, for Michael Bay.
Yeah.
But he can speak to a couple things.
How you doing? Doing
So,
good.
I guess.
Here, it wasn't Kenner, and it wasn't. It was and this is really really specific because
Okay, it's
the toy company didn't want to do Turtles until there was a TV deal.
Right. So hand in hand.
Yes.
Warner Brothers.
Yes.
So should we go? Should we do this? It's 4:59.
It's 5:02, and yes, we should.
You guys waiting for Eastman?
Yeah.
You got here.
I'm sorry.
He's got here.
Oh, he's here. That was fast. That was really fast.
From Olympic and Slauson?
Hi, Kevin.
Impressive.
Wow, very impressive bit of driving.
I did. I went back alleys and over rooftops.
Meow meow. Did you hop on your Nimbus 2000? Potter reference.
I got it.
Howdy, howdy.
Oh, good. Hi, how are you?
It was Playmates toys.
Playmates.
This groovy
Yes.
squat was up here.
Hi again.
Good to see you.
Great to see you.
Hi, I'm Greg Davis.
Hi, Greg. Nice to meet you. Hi. Pleasure. Thanks.
So we're gonna need a third chair, aren't we?
No, usually if it's just you and me, I figure I'll let you guys talk because I'll be playing videos and stuff like that, and you'll hear my voice off camera.
Sure.
So I don't need to be on camera today.
Okay.
Incredibly flexible.
Great.
Anything completely off limits.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you talk to the Michael Bay stuff?
Yeah, I can tell you what I know. And they, they.
And the whole Four Horsemen is a comic book.
Yes.
So there's a CG trailer for a comic book.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's it's
Got that.
Well, I haven't seen really good Simon Bisley in a while, and I'm so
Yes.
excited.
It's very good.
I'm a big fan of Matt Wagner's Grendel, which we'll
Yes.
talk about in the interview. And
Fantastic.
Simon Bisley actually got to work with Matt on some of those books.
Well, they do.
Alright.
Yeah, the Tower is the new book they're doing with Legendary, right?
Ooh, yeah, it's legendary.
Tower
Matt
Chronicles.
Wagner and the.
Yeah.
So let me put this on airplane mode or something.
Matt Wagner is still sitting on that Grendel property, and it has never, ever found the light of day for a miniseries or a movie or anything.
It'd be fantastic.
It should.
Sure.
It really should. But anyway,
Alright,
talking
so-
talking about late '80s, early '90s independent books that we love.
Mm-hmm.
So, which seat is best?
Which seat is best for you or me or?
Either one.
Okay. I do my
Those
allergy
are
with
two.
you, so.
I have the chat room here so you guys can kind of follow along when people asking. And then I'll have the Stickam chat going on here, so I'll feature questions.
Which chat is that, Barnum's?
Yeah, that's part of it.
Okay, that's the one I want to pay most attention to.
Right.
You can, thank you. You can eyeball the Stickam room.
Yeah. So,
Okay. Oh, lordy. A friend of mine. A friend of mine from another store.
Oh, cool.
A friend of mine had just asked me to bring that. He works at another store in Burbank.
Fantastic.
Emerald Knights, comics and
Sure.
games.
Yeah,
They're
fantastic.
great.
Yeah, no, this is man. These covers have been an absolute blast to do. I've enjoyed them thoroughly, and working on the story and the whole whole nine.
Oh, for sure.
Forget that they built this out like this. It was great.
And that's what the audience sees. The comic book store is fantastic.
That's great.
What if Cliff slips? I'm not gonna slip. Are we? Who are we logged in as?
Just me, just Justin.
Just Justin?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, ready?
Yeah, sure. This is Cliff. I won't slip.
I'll tell them.
Yeah, okay. Shift.
I had an iPad for like a minute. My kids found it.
Yeah, I'm on Justin Sewell's account, so there's that. Blah, blah, blah. So,
Ready?
Bad mouthing.
Kevin Eastman. Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen.
Couldn't your best radio voice.
I actually do a lot of voiceover, so. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Kevin Eastman. Coast 103.5. I don't know if that's the call letters or not, the numbers. Whew. Oh, they see us now. Hello, everybody. We're live. We're on the air.
Awesome.
We are.
Well, everyone, welcome aboard. Of course, yes, smog. Now, there's a reason why. We'll begin the show with the most obvious. We have to address the 800-pound dragon in the room. SMAUG is the proper spelling, but that is licensed and copyright controlled by everyone in the universe, from the Tolkien estate to Saul Zent's company to Warner Brothers and on down the line. So when the OneRing.net crafted these very clever shirts, it had to be smog, because smog kills. Now you know. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Torn Tuesday, our live webcast that we have every Tuesday at 5 o'clock. And we actually started pretty much on time today. I'm your congenial host, Cliff Broadway, also known online as QuickBeam at theonering.net, where I've been a contributor and writer for about 11 years now. And here, on my immediate left, the exceptionally talented and quite successful Mr. Kevin Eastman. Hello,
much.
sir. It's a pleasure, such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much.
He is
Great
the
to be here.
creator, the co-creator, and inspirational power behind one of the longest-running and most adored franchises that pop culture has quite seen in a long time. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that began in 1983 with Kevin Eastman and Mr. Laird, right?
Yeah.
And now we are here a few years later on the backside of several television adaptations and film adaptations. Most of that good money that went into The Lord of the Rings was because New Line Cinema was so successful with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Is there another Tolkien connection? I guarantee you guys. We're so happy to have Kevin on board. Kevin, tell us. What's up?
Yeah, first, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Sure.
It is funny to think, every time that I think of the year 1983, it is like almost 30 years ago that the Turtles have been around, and it was, late one night, Peter and I joking around in the studio. I did a sketch of Michelangelo, told Peter was the next big thing. Studio one-upmanship. We had a sketch of all four turtles, and said we have to come up with a story that tells how these characters get to be the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And here we are, just 300 cartoon episodes later, 4 movies.
Yeah, and now our friend Sean Astin, who we just interviewed a couple of months ago, is now going to be involved in this new Nickelodeon version.
Raphael.
I'm so
my favorite turtle as well.
So excited. Yeah, he plays Raphael.
Yes, he's great. Yes.
Yes.
No, that was very exciting because I'm a huge Tolkien fan. I mean, that may be one of the things when I first met you. You asked if I had a connection to the ring, and I showed you my wedding ring, which is the One Ring. You can see I've worn all the Elvish off on the outside, but there's still the Elvish on the inside. You can
Yes, it is, actually. Ladies and gentlemen, the proof is in the pudding. If you want to know who's a hardcore Ringer fan, it's not the people who, mortgage their house and go to New Zealand, although that does qualify as a hardcore fan.
Oh, I'd go.
But when you get your spouse to agree to a one ring of power to be your one ring for your wedding, that is beautiful.
That's fantastic. Thank you. It's when I was a kid,
it's so funny.
I read so many comic books. My dad was always trying to get me to read books, so he would give me, Watership Down and
Richard Adams.
Oh, please, stuff like this. And
Oh,
say,
yeah.
Read a book. And then finally, he gave me these. He gave me The Hobbit, and he said, "You'll love this. Just some reward equals if you read The Hobbit, and that's where I got sucked in, and that's where it all started.
Me too. Me
read
too.
The Hobbit, read obviously all 3 books after that, probably 5 or 6 times when I was a kid. I just adored the series, and even when in fast forward to New Line Cinema releasing the first movie, my dad didn't want to go. He was out here visiting me in L.A. from Maine, and I dragged him to the theater to see it. I said I'd already seen it once in
Fellowship of the Ring.
Fellowship of the Ring.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Sorry. And I said, "You're gonna love it." And he's like, "No, I have," because he's a big reader too. So he said, "I've got such a perfect vision in my head of this entire world that Tolkien's built that I don't want to see somebody else's vision." But he saw it and he flipped out. He loved it. He thought it was great. And that was a huge compliment, I think, from him to say that. And
Wow.
to me,
So you would say your dad was a purist?
very much so. Yes.
We have a lot of conversations with our friends and all of our audience on the chat about the purists versus the movie adaptations. There are those fans who are very much entrenched in one camp. And they're the kinds of people who say, you cannot play fast and loose with Shakespeare, or for any adaptation, or Tolkien for that matter. And there are the other fans who say, lighten up, let Peter Jackson do what he does, and enjoy the ride. And where within that alignment would you fall?
See, I'm leaning towards the second. I like that it was very pure. It was very true in many, many respects. I think so respectful of the characters and the history and the legacy and the importance of the story. That there were some things that were a bit fast and loose. I think appropriately put.
Like Arwen yelling across the river at the Nazgul, "If you want him, come and claim him."
Yeah,
things like that. But those are seminal moments. Those are moments we love
Yes.
in the movie, even though it's radically different from Tolkien.
Well, it's like the thing too that when the second time I read the series, I skipped over all the singing, because there was just pages and pages of every time they seemed like they went somewhere they all sat around and sang for a few hours, and so the second reading I skipped over the singing, which if that component was in the movie, it might have slowed things down a little bit, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I thought it was just such a perfect version. I mean, I literally just watched the Blu-ray again within the last month. Like, watched the entire extended edition, then watched the behind the scenes, and then all the appendices before I go on to the.
Really? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, hardcore ringer, Kevin Eastman. Okay.
I'm actually blushing.
So we can actually talk. We can talk about ephemera and details of Tolkien's world. This is almost as good as sitting down with Stephen Colbert to actually talk about real hardcore ephemera. I love it. I love it. Now, I mean, I want to get some of this out of the way because I can't stop enthusing about Tolkien. The impact that his work has had on me has been quite profound since I was very, very young. But ironically, it all started with the animated TV version that Rankin and Bass had done. I hadn't read The Hobbit yet. At the ripe age of 11, 12, I got to see this, 90-minute animated thing, and it turned me on to this fantastic place called Middle-earth. And who are these characters? Really? Gandalf the Grey? The coolest wizard ever, with the voice of John Huston, as I recall.
Yes.
The great and late John Huston. And I picked up the books and then read and reread that, and I found myself devouring every book, everything that I could find.
Fantastic.
I mean, do you think that kind of literacy, the things that the kids are reading now, Harry Potter, and we have all the young kids also just devouring books as much as they can. How do you feel about that? Because you're part of that too.
Well, it's fantastic. I mean, it really is. It's one thing to read a comic book, and I'm of the mind that anything that gets a child to read is a good thing. But to read a book where you actually have to use your imagination. To me, I mean, I grew up in a very small town in Maine. We didn't have toys, we didn't really have TV, we didn't have those kinds of things. So reading was the place where I escaped, and I really let my imagination run wild. It really allowed me to build up a real visual sense inside my head, and I think that for the career that I chose, and I wanted to be a comic book artist, a cartoonist, a storyteller since a very young age.
Yes.
So I was just feeding the beast, and I think I was very lucky compared to most people who struggle with their career choices. To me, since I saw the first issue of Jack Kirby's Commandy, that's all I ever wanted to do was draw comic books.
Yes.
And so anything that I could do to feed the machine was just a plus, 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 plus. And so
That's
I did the same thing. I read those books 5 or 6 times and always found new things in them. It led me to read lots of other books, and stuff like the Harry Potter books, or anything that gets a kid to read and use their imagination and explore that that genre. I think is medium is fantastic. It's just so important.
I agree. Well, with Turtles, at the very beginning of Turtles, you had not, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you had not really visualized this as a children's property. In the first, limited edition, 3,000 printings of your first few issues, before you sat down and had the conversations with Playmates Toys, you guys were taking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on this other course that was... and some of my comic book friends have prepped me before this interview. They've asked me to ask you about how you were trying to do a tip of the hat to the wacky stuff that was going on in the world of Daredevil and other books at that time, in the late 70s, early 80s. Is that right? You were directly influenced?
My goodness, yes. In so many things. I always like to say that, in comic books, I think in general, we, especially, where I started, firmly standing on the shoulders of giants. I mean, we grew up reading... Jack Kirby works and Gene Colan and John Severin and Russ Heath and all these guys and lots of different great writers and Stan Lee. And that was the material that inspired me to draw initially. I then discovered Heavy Metal Magazine around the time that I was kind of growing out of, about the time that superhero comics were getting to be a little juvenile.
Yes.
I discovered Heavy Metal Magazine, which showed me that comics can be used for anything. You can tell any kind of story. All the European material that doing these fantastical, off-world planet, stories. You can tell any kind of story you choose to, using the medium of comic books. And that led me to underground publishers. Heavy metal led me to underground publishers like Richard Corbin, Robert Crumb, Ron Bodie, guys like that. Yeah. So very early on, I was exposed to enough of the right things so that when somebody like Dave Sim came along and did Cerebus the Aardvark, and remember the first issues of Cerebus in the late 70s where he drew this crazy aardvark in a Barry Smith style, so he had this barbarian-like aardvark.
It's fantasy barbarian world,
Yep, and I just remember that a lot of people said, hey, look at this funny story about this aardvark acting like Conan the Barbarian drawn like Barry Smith, and it was getting a lot of attention. So that was, and it was self-published, so that was really one of a bunch of connectors that said, hey, if Dave Sim can do this, why can't we do this? So we sort of, I took all the love and respect that I had for Frank Miller. I mean, I was reading Daredevil before Frank Miller came on board in 158, and watched him, with great enthusiasm grow into such a powerful artist. Just from Daredevil 158 to 191, 192 was just mind-blowing. So I was a fan of Daredevil before. I was a fan of Dave Sim, Underground Publishing, Cerebus the Aardvark, fan of other kind of mainstream comics, Chris Claremont's New Mutants and things like that, and a lot of different things with Watchmen. So when Peter and I sat and said, let's pick all of our favorite things and put it into this one comic, because nobody's going to read it anyway. We're gonna print 3,000 of them. They're gonna sit in our living room. They're never gonna be seen and read by anybody but family members that we give to, Christmas after Christmas. And so we scraped together enough money to an income tax return that I had, $200 from Pete's bank account. We borrowed $1,000 from my Uncle Quentin, and we had exactly enough money to print 3,000 copies at a local New Hampshire printer and take out one ad in the Comics Buyer's Guide, and that was where the Turtles started. We premiered it at my friend Ralph DiBernardo, who owns a comic store in Portsmouth called Jetpack Comics. He ran the first comic convention back in 1984 that we premiered the Turtles.
Oh, wow, great.
And I saw him recently in Boston. It was great to see him. But anyway, great. That was, again, to the point where when the boxes of Turtle books came to our house from the printer, we actually made furniture out of them in our living room because we didn't think they would ever sell them. Like they were coffee table and side table and stuff. But thanks to the direct market and a crazy title and a wacky parody homage to all of our favorite things in comics, Pete and I basically drew this comic exactly the way we would like to see. We drew it as something we'd like to see, we'd like to read.
That's the best way.
Plus,
the best way.
Dedicating it to Frank Miller and Jack Kirby was also part of the parody. And to the point where when the first book sold out, we did a second printing. We started getting calls from distributors asking, well, when we're going to do a second one, and that was when we said, well, we never thought there would ever be a second one, so we actually had to start coming up with a story.
In so small an act, can the hand of destiny be changed? Right?
So true, absolutely true.
Isn't that funny?
How many issues did it take before you got the interest of toys and TV?
Playmates.
Well, what happened was it was fairly quick, I think, as these things go, because it was all a new experience to us. Is that we published the first book in '84, and in 1985 we had finished the second book, early 1985, and we'd gotten orders from distributors, and the orders were 15,000 copies. And Pete did these calculations on a napkin and said, based on the cost per copy versus the profit we'll make about $2,000 each per issue. So if we do 6 of these a year, we could actually pay our rent drawing comics for a living. And to me, that was really where the dream came true, is that we get to be cartoonists for a living. We get to draw comics for a living, and there was never a better, more exciting moment in my entire life than that day when I could quit working all the side jobs that I was doing to do just do comic books.
That's great.
And so 85, we did Turtles 2, 3, and 4. Then into 86, we were starting 5, and we did some of the one-shots. And that was around the time that the numbers had now gone up to, I think, 100,000 plus copies.
Oh my gosh.
And that was the kind of thing that brought, different agents in different companies.
Yeah.
To look at the Turtles like, hey, we think this can be something more than just a comic book. And Peter and I were like, well, we didn't really see it, especially early on. We said we'd kind of written this thing, and in issue 2 we had the Turtles drinking beer, and there was a lot of blood, and there was this kind of stuff. We didn't really think it would be for anybody but us and a few older adults that got the joke.
And they all had the same color blindfolds.
Oh yes.
Originally.
No,
It was the toy company who said, let's make a distinction between the 4 characters and give them different colors, right?
Yeah, it was Pete's idea to give them the different colors, because it was literally before the first convention in May 5th, 1984, that we were premiering the book. We realized that we didn't have anything to hang on the wall behind us, so I quickly did a painting of all 4 turtles with Shredder kind of behind them, and I just did the bandanas all red, thinking, well, I know who they are, and they should all be red.
Yes.
But it was later when we were specifically writing the turtles down for a specific age group, that they said, we needed the distinction in a different color bandanas.
Blue, purple, orange, red.
Yeah, it works.
It works great. Anything that contrasts with green, it works great.
Yes.
This is so fascinating to me, to think about building a mythology or building a franchise, because perhaps there's a great similarity in both of these efforts. Okay, pop culture being a very strange and interesting beast, and you've had a long and enduring relationship with Madam Pop Culture.
Oh yes.
It's very interesting to me that you set out, as you said, with these goals and ended up with the world in a basket. and I wonder, how did you maintain, how did you steer yourselves creatively in all of this? And there was a lot of influx of other input and a lot of other people on board, and I wonder how you maintained through all of that.
Well,
Because Tolkien, by comparison, was all by himself.
Yes.
And he sat alone creating that mythology all by himself.
Right.
And you had the cooperation, or perhaps the problematic involvement. I don't know, you describe it for me.
Sure. Well, it's maybe that's why it took him so long, but it was such an awesome world. I can see why it would take that long to create the world that he did. But we're very fortunate that it was Peter and I. So we both write, we both draw, and so the entire Turtles universe was built basically off the first 15 issues, which is issues 1 through 11, and then the 4 one-shots, which is a single issue featuring an individual turtle. And Peter and I pretty much wrote and drew all of those together. And what was cool is that once we did the first issue and there was a need for a second issue, we started working on the second issue. We put some of the things that we like. We introduced April O'Neil as a scientist and Baxter Stockman, and we had the Mausers. And then we got into issue 3. When we sat down and started talking about issue 3, it was literally that. Like, what are our favorite pop culture reference? What would we like to read? What kind of things did we like reading? What kind of things, if we were on the other side of the Turtles, would we like to see the Turtles doing? And so, a lot of Turtles issue 3 was a van chase. The cops chasing all 4 turtles in April in a little VW van, and that idea came from, I told Pete that I've never seen a car chase in a comic. And so we built part of the story around that, but it was also part of us taking the Turtles into our favorite universe, which is the Star Wars universe. But we immediately said, what's our next favorite genre / influence, which was George Lucas and Star Wars. So by the end of issue 3, we had set up this alien race that had been hiding in plain sight on Earth. That later became Krang in the cartoon series, these little squishy Ultrams, these little aliens.
Yes.
Which is where the ooze came from. And so we started that at the end of issue 3, and then by issue 4 we had them launched into outer space. And so we get to do, it was mainly I wanted to do them in the Star Wars Cantina. We wanted to do them off-world, interacting with aliens, where,
cool.
if you think about it, they're actually would be almost more comfortable because here on Earth they're really outcast because there are humans, and outer space there's lots of aliens, and so.
Yes.
But it was just the whole evil Triceraton Empire and their race, and the whole story arc that went from 4, 5, 6, and 7 and ended on issue 7 where they came back to Earth was all of our tip of the hat to the George Lucas Star Wars.
Wow, really?
And so
that's great.
And there was things like
did you hide any Tolkien references in there? Even the slight little homage.
It's funny that jumping off of Turtles just for a second is that I'm working on a story now which is my Tolkien homage. I've been working on this story for about 10 years.
Okay.
And so it's a very long, very detailed whole new universe that I've created. That's something that's hopefully will be out next year. I've been working on it for a very long time.
Okay.
But with the Turtles, I think that what's funny is that we did the first issues, then we did this Lucas tribute, and then we, like Casey Jones, for example, was influenced by Big Trouble in Little China. That's Jack Burton's character.
Yeah.
He came in. And so by the time, but so quickly into the Turtles experience, by the time we got to issue 15, which is the issue 11 plus the one-shots, we were already starting our path down Hollywood Lane, if you will. So we started working on the animations and episodes and the toys. So before we actually really got to, it's almost our monthly work on the Turtles comic book ended. We then were off into this whole other multiple universes of Turtle.
That's cool.
So.
Well, I mean, wow. There are pressing questions that I've been seeing coming through the chat.
Please.
Hello, J.W. Braun, and I want to say hello to our regular audience. I see Jenny, and I see Zanaseb. Are you up there too? Is Pete Northronner up there? Hi, Pete. Hello, everyone. I can see you guys over there on the monitor, a long way off to the side. Hi, guys. Cheers. You guys can hear and see everything okay. For our audience who is just now joining us, station identification, this is Torn Tuesdays. It's the weekly webcast for the OneRing.net, and I'm your host, Cliff Broadway, with the creator of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and now the publisher and head man at Heavy Metal Magazine, one of my all-time favorites. I mean, when I was just a little kid, I got introduced to the best TNA with the Heavy Metal Magazine.
Better than National Geographic.
Oh, way better than National Geographic. Oh, Heavy Metal is the best. It's still the best. And it was the only time at that age I found myself looking at other artwork that was non-American.
Yes.
I was looking at Brazilian, Portuguese, European, amazing artists from around the world, and they had some pretty stiff translations, but at the time I didn't know it. I thought they were great, I was just a kid.
Yep.
But, I mean, God, I love that stuff. So Heavy Metal Magazine, which now leads us to talk about some other things related to heavy metal and the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse.
Yes.
Aren't you having a launch party tomorrow?
We hope.
Yeah? Or is there a signing?
We hopefully will.
Okay.
No, we're doing a signing here tomorrow.
Yes.
At Meltdown Comics. It's related to I did this big gallery show here at Meltdown the first part of this year called Los Angeles 35 Days with Kevin Eastman, and we did this big heavy metal celebration and turtle celebration for the work I've been doing with the awesome guys at the IDW with the new Turtles comics. And so as we're celebrating the entire, and this is Heavy Metal's 35th anniversary year, so it is. We're 35 years old this year. So
wow, that's great.
It's been a while since I've gotten in front of the fans with Heavy Metal and Turtles, and we were hoping to do a launch of Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, but it's we had a snafu in shipping, so it probably won't be available till next week. But You can, if you guys, any of you guys are going down to San Diego Comic-Con, Simon Bisley will be at Comic-Con this year. We'll be continuing the celebration for Heavy Metal's 35th anniversary with lots of free giveaways and things like that. And we're premiering a new animated movie I've been working on for a while, mainly as executive producer, helping shepherd along a project that is a fantastic director and a fantastic studio, and it's called War of the Worlds Goliath. It's a steampunkish sort of reinvention, and it picks up sort of where H.G. Wells left off, and we sort of pick up the pieces from there. And you can see the trailer at heavymetal.com. You can see what we've been up to with it, and that's going to be...
We've got both trailers queued up.
Oh, good.
We do have them. Guys, let's do this. Now, I mean, congratulations on 35 years of heavy metal.
Thanks.
One of my favoriteest movies, and one of my favorite South Park spoofs ever.
Ever.
That stuff is... Those guys are
major
genius.
booby. They really are. I was like... I remember like when it first came out, people were like, you should sue them. And I'm like, sue them for what? Giving me a hernia from laughing so much? It was the best.
We're indebted to Matt Parker and Trey Stone for the endless amusement and the great parody that they've given us. But heavy metal stands tall in the world of illustrated fiction. Very significant publication that has brought us generations of fantastic artwork from alien worlds and our own world, cast in a whole strange new phantasmagorical light. And this man now has helped bring heavy metal back full frontal right here into your living rooms, wrapped in a nice brown paper package when it comes in the mail.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, I got to do it.
No, it's
heavy
fine.
metal is really great stuff, and these guys, Kevin Eastman, are now working with Simon Bisley, and this is it a 4-part series?
3-part. Yep.
It's a
big.
3-part comic book series called The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And we're going to roll that trailer first. We have an extraordinary CGI animated trailer for the new comic book. You guys, check it out.
Or thy God in vain, for he will not hold you guiltless, nor will I. The day of the great wrath has come. The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse.
This is Kevin Eastman, creator of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and also publisher of Heavy Metal, and he is very excited to join us today on Torn Tuesday. What you just saw was...
What you just saw was Michael Mannheim's creation called Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. He's worked with Simon Bisley, and they've created this entire world, this kind of storyline that runs 200 pages over 3 72-page issues, and he created this awesome 3D CG trailer to help promote it. So it gives you a feeling of the sense of the world that you're going to be entering into when you see the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse books. That's premiering. We're hoping for this coming Wednesday, but it's going to be next Wednesday. It'll be available for sale. So.
For those of you who are uninitiated, Simon Bisley is a remarkable painter and artist.
Yes.
He has a niche. He has a specialized, very specialized niche.
Yes.
So he almost reminds me of Boris Vallejo,
Yep.
gone into Clive Barker world. Really, I mean, it's a nightmare version of this drenched, beautiful, atmospheric fantasy, but he goes for horror a lot more than most people do, doesn't he?
Yeah, you can definitely see, it's like, when I was talking about earlier, I mean, you can see some of his influences. I mean, Frank Frazetta, Boris Vallejo, a number of other, older English illustrators, but he's really, created his own sort of look, feel, and style. I mean, that's where any artist, even kids that are entering the field today, I said, look, don't be shy to study your inspirations, even if it's copying them, tracing them, find out what you love about them, what they do best, and then eventually you'll interpret it and you become your own man, your own artist, your own person. But Simon is world renowned for his work on Judge Dredd and Slain. Lobo was one of the most popular DC characters that he did. He's Heavy Metal's the #1 selling cover artist, and I've worked with Simon on a number of projects probably for the last 15 years. So,
I first discovered his work doing covers for Matt Wagner's Grendel.
Oh, yes.
In the early 90s, and you could just knock me over with a feather. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of this stuff. So there we are. We have the Four Horsemen, and you'll have that trailer also running at Comic-Con?
Yes, we have that running at Comic-Con.
Now, the big event, okay, now Mr. Eastman, not only is he behind the Turtles, and not only is he a deeply avowed Tolkien fan and a fellow ringer, but he's also bringing us a delicious treat, because steampunk has taken over everything, and we love it too. We've seen a lot of steampunk Lord of the Rings variations with all of our friends doing great ensemble costumes and implements and weapons that are Lord of the Rings crossed with steampunk. I've seen so much of this. It's wonderful. Now we have H.G. Wells' classic story of War of the Worlds.
Yes.
Revisited.
Yes, it's really a fantastic vision that my friend Joe Pearson created. It more or less picks up after the H.G. Wells novel ends, but it's about 15 years later, 20 years later, where it's just about, it's 1913, 1914. So the Martians have come, they've devastated planet Earth, and as the humans are rebuilding, they not only acquire and begin to understand and adapt some of the Martian technology, but they also, it's that Art Deco steampunk sort of era that they're evolving into in that period.
Yeah.
And so, everything's tripod based, and the biplanes with some Martian jet technology to dirigibles to that kind of stuff, and
brass, copper, and wood fixtures everywhere. Yeah.
So the story takes place just before World War I historically would have started, and this NATO alliance of all these different nations with these tripods waiting for the Martians to come back to fight. Of course, just on the eve of World War I about to break out, the Martians come back and all hell breaks loose, and that's basically where our movie starts.
War of the Worlds Goliath.
Thank you.
War of the Worlds Goliath.
Yes.
Right? And we have the trailer?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Okay. All right, guys, stick around for just one quick second. Our technical producer, Justin, has this beautiful trailer. You're going to show the whole film in 3D.
Yes, thank you. Yes, it's going to make its world premiere in 3D at San Diego Comic-Con. We've got a Saturday night premiere, so.
That's fantastic. We'll be there. Here's the trailer.
Whenever someone asks me if I believe in heaven and hell, I tell them I don't know about heaven, but on hell, I'm an expert. Today, at 11 a.m. in Sarajevo, Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated.
The Balkans are about to go to hell. Countries mobilizing against each other. Unless we're united,
Mankind is done for. Martians.
It's been 15 years since the first invasion. Are we ready, sir?
I won't allow myself to believe anything else.
Europe's about to explode and take England with it. We either make our move when it does, or we'll never be free.
The fools in Europe would rather prepare to fight each other than the Martians.
No! We must remain together. Who will fight with me? Give them everything we've got!
Come and get it!
We must fight as one.
No! Do not let go! Nothing can prepare you for war itself. All you can do is make sure it is your enemy that dies.
Talk about Comic-Con and all the news that is news around the world. We're bringing it back to the biggest news, of course, that Nickelodeon, owned by Viacom, Nickelodeon is going to relaunch a whole beautiful new CG animated TV series with our dear friend Sean Astin and some other great voice talent.
Yes.
Isn't Paul Robson?
Rob Paulson.
Rob Paulson.
He was Raphael in the original series.
Yeah, now he's
Donatello.
Now he's going to be Donatello.
Yeah.
Switching turtles completely. Okay, well, if Mel Blanc can do it, then.
But
Is
Jason.
Donatello based on Balin? A few people in the chat room were like, "We see the connection."
It's it's sort of Donatello was evolved as a very sort of monk-like sort of Zen character, and Pete was always a big fan of and studied Aikido, and to me, Donatello is the most like Peter Laird, not only in his approach, his mentality, his choice of weapons, and his and I'm more like Raphael, because I would be the guy that in the story sessions I'd be stomping around the room going, "It's gonna be this, we gotta be that." And Pete would be like.
Mikey and Leo.
Mikey was kind of a hybrid of a bunch of different friends, but in particular, a friend of mine, Steve Levine, who was letterer, and then he's an artist in his own right, but he was letterer on the Turtle books after people got sick of my lettering. I lettered the first 4 or 5. But Steve is kind of like Maine's version of Robin Williams, especially in high school. He was the funniest guy I ever met. And Leonardo was kind of, I don't want to say a generic leader type, but it was that every group has its sort of leader that wants to do the right thing, is very the good son, if you want to be the good leader, always trying the hardest and trying to keep everybody else in line. And every group needs a good leader to keep that in line. So
why do you think Michelangelo became like the standout favorite?
I think it's he's so funny. I mean, it's like even Greg Sipes, who does Michelangelo in the new series, he steals every scene. Jason Biggs as Leonardo is great. Sean Astin as Raphael is awesome. Yeah. Rob Paulson is fantastic as always. But then Greg Sipes does Michelangelo, and the way Michelangelo is written, it's just he's a lovable character. But he's also like a little idiot savant, sort of. One of those. Mm-hmm. He's very skilled, but he's very funny, and he's got a big heart. Wears it on his sleeve.
I love Rob Paulson. I mean, since Pinky and the Brain,
yes.
There's quite a few voice actors in this world. Tom Kane, and Rob Paulson, who I just adore these guys, and they do so many voices on so many great shows. Yes. It's great to be working with him. He's a real veteran.
Well, we're really lucky in that what Viacom is doing with the launch, and how my involvement is that Viacom sort of set up to recreate the feeling of the original Turtle comic books with IDW. My friend Ted Adams, who owns IDW, brought me in to help, and then started as a consultant. And I love Tom Waltz, who's the head writer at IDW for the series. Just rolled out this fantastic vision of what he wanted the story to be and how he wanted to connect multiple Turtle universes in this new foundation. And we're just coming up on the 12th issue, which will be out just after Comic-Con. So I've been involved in the relaunch with Tom, doing covers, helping consult on the story, and working on the different aspects of the story. Ciro Neely is the guy at Nickelodeon that is just a fantastic auteur, artist, visionary, and hardcore Turtle fan. He's spearheading the entire relaunch of the Turtles animated CG series, and it's like he's created such a wonderful vision, and it's slightly different than some of the tweaks that we did in the comic book series. You'll find differences in that. In the animated series, his is a bit more, like April's 16 years old in the series, and Splinter's a bit different, and so there's slight tweaks, but it's still within the Turtle universe. And then over on the other side, you've got Michael Bay's, he's executive producing a new movie with Adam and Goodman and Paramount, who brought us Avengers, working with the fantastic Josh Applebaum and Andre Nemec as writers, and my new friend Jonathan Liebsman, who's the director.
Yes.
And Jonathan's really dove into the series with his heart and soul, and his one and singular goal is to make the best Turtle movie ever. And they invited me to come play. I'm officially consulting on the movie. And what they've come up with so far, I think, is just fantastic. Don't worry about what you've heard. Just wait.
Well, let's get to the nitty-gritty, because on our Facebook page, we canvassed the fans and said, bring your questions.
Sure.
And on the book face, we got a lot of prep questions from these fans, and they said, how much to take Michael Bay out? That was one of the comments from one poster. There are people who really, really ticked off. In fact, and of course we have the chance to clarify here. There was someone here in our Barlaments chat just today who said that people are ticked off because Michael Bay said in this new film iteration, the Turtles will have an alien origin. And I have also heard that you probably intended it that way. Does this conflict with existing Turtle mythology?
Well, a couple quick things. First, and
look at how the fans are so attached to your mythology.
Well, no, I see.
That's great.
The fact that we're even sitting here talking about a new comic book series, a new animated series, and a new 30 years after the first Turtles were drawn, is just so epically huge and humbling, and such an amazing honor that we have any fans at all, let alone enough fans to do this kind of a program. It's fantastic. I love our fans dearly. Going directly to Michael Bay is an absolutely knockdown, drag-out, fantastic director. I mean, look at the movies that this guy has done, and it's I've been on movie sets. I've worked on these movies. It's to get any movie to come out good in Hollywood ever is just, it's such an epic. You have a better chance of winning the lottery most of the times, and I think it's a huge undertaking. And you look at what he's done visually, the strides that he's made as a director, and the kinds of stories that he tells. Is that aside, the guy's got all the credit he needs. Look at Bad Boys. Look at Pearl Harbor. Look at some stuff. Anyway,
indeed.
But the origins of the Turtles, like we talked about almost very early on, is as soon as Pete and I had freedom, because we were the editors, we were the publishers, we were the artists, we took them into outer space, and we introduced the TCRI aliens, which is the Ultrams, and then we took you to the origin of the Ooze, which is from outer space. So they have alien origins. The Ooze is from outer space.
That's what the fans are saying right now. Yeah. Ooze. The Ooze. Look at this. Han Solo in our live chat says, Ooze plus Turtles equals TMNT. Yes. It's that simple.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
So
who's to say that the Ooze can't be from outer space? Right?
Well, exactly. Well, the thing was, we actually say it in Turtles 7. If you read Turtles issue 7, we actually go through this process.
Hutch. Thank you, Hutch. Yeah, I'm responding to the fans. Yes, go ahead.
No, I love it. But it's so, however it's played out in the movie, and I'm not going to tell you, I'd be crucified. But the thing is that, what was important, not only for IDW and Nickelodeon when they were working on the comic series, Ciro, and what he's doing with the new animated series, and equally important for Jonathan Liebsman in the new Turtles movie, is it has to be well grounded in Turtle history, Turtle lore, and Turtle. We don't want to take that away from the fans. Look at I saw Avengers, and Avengers for me, I grew up reading the Avengers, and that movie was so good I practically wept in the theater. It was fantastic.
It was juicy good.
It was juicy.
It really was.
It was one of the I couldn't remember the last movie I'd seen that the minute it was over I wanted to see it again, kind of thing.
My secret is I'm always angry. Oh, Mark Ruffalo, so awesome.
Yes,
so awesome.
So the thing is that Christmas 2013, it's we're gonna have an awesome turtle movie. So keep the faith.
And one of the unique things about here is that people, fans of Lord of the Rings, always wonder what would J.R.R. Tolkien himself, think of all the iterations that are being done with Peter Jackson with these movies. Here, you're in that position. You are the Tolkien of that universe. So how do you feel that other people have kind of taken ownership and possession?
Well, you know what's interesting is that if you think about, take the Avengers for example, is when I grew up reading the Avengers, every year or every other year, a new creative team would come into the Avengers, or Spider-Man or Iron Man, and we had the Barry Smith Conan versus the John Buscema Conan. We've had the Chris Claremont X-Men versus the Dave Cockman. It wasn't a bizarre thing to us that when we were working on the Turtles early on to have different artists come in and work on our characters. It was sort of almost an industry standard. It wasn't like, oh my God, leave our characters alone. It was around that time we were working on other parts of the Turtles universe, the animated movies and that kind of stuff. So we were literally working with other animation writers to develop the story for animation. We were working with Todd Langdon and those guys working on the Turtles live action movie. To me, what was interesting is that the different versions of the Turtles I saw, even the stuff, Tales of the Turtles we published, short stories that we published, I would look at the Turtle stories in this way, in that I either liked it or didn't like it. If I didn't like it, we usually didn't publish it. But I wanted them to have the creative freedom, and I would see a story and say, well, that's not exactly how I would do it, but I really like it. More importantly is that I would see things that other people saw in my Turtles that I never saw in the Turtles, because you might think, they might be looking at the Turtles. Michelangelo's kind of like this, or they bring, well, what if Michelangelo liked that, or if he liked that, or if he didn't like spinach or something, you know what I mean?
Right.
Things that we never fleshed it out
right.
that well early on.
Right.
So they helped us sort of expand our vision of our own characters, and it was very engaging and endearing and fun. So I never minded it at all, to be honest.
It is here's the thing that happened with Professor Tolkien, and not everyone knows this, and except for most of my audience, who has read the biography of Tolkien that was written by Humphrey Carpenter, and also his letters. His published letters is a goldmine of amazing information about what Professor Tolkien was really dealing with. He had to put his kids through school. He was not making enough money working at Oxford, and he had 4 kids. He had 3 boys and 1 girl, and he was thinking, I have these books, and if I don't do this, how am I going to financially make ends meet? And Saul Zaentz came waltzing into the room not long after the gentleman who is affectionately known as Uncle Forey, Forrest Ackerman, who created Famous Monsters of Filmland.
Sure, know Forey well.
Forrest Ackerman, thank you. He tried to get the film rights from Tolkien, and it didn't fly. Right. Because his early draft screenplay was a disaster that Tolkien hated so much. But eventually, Saul Zaentz came in and said, here's the deal, here's the money, you give us the rights for these books, and you're going to get this massive chunk of change, and we will walk away from each other. And Tolkien sold off the farm. And that was it. No further creative involvement could he have with adaptations of The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings. And back to Justin's question, I've always wondered how much Professor Tolkien, if he had been alive and had seen Ralph Bakshi's version, I wonder how much, but it has some goods and bads to it. But you have never really quite been separated from Turtles completely, have you?
Not till,
until you sold off the
me personally, but it was sort of like, I sold my interest all my entire interest in the Turtles to Peter in two different installments, but it was I keep flashing to Tolkien because I do wonder what he was thinking, because it's we can only reflect on a personal journey, and it was the thing with Peter and I is that we had such full control over the characters for so long that when people would in the early days would look at us and go, "Oh, you sold out, you did this, that." And it's like, no, we didn't actually. Every single decision, whether it was the toys, the animation. I mean, Peter and I had input and say on nearly 300 animation episodes. We worked on every script. We, with some of the artists at Mirage, designed most of the toy line, or half of the toy line at least, for Playmates Toys. We, the entire Archie comic series was packaged in-house at Mirage with artists Steve Murphy and Dan Berger and guys that were working, Ken Micciarone. We had full control and full say of what was done with our turtles in almost every aspect, and everything that was allowed to happen with them. We allowed it to happen, and that's just such an awesome blessing. So, whether it was my decision or Pete's decision and later to sell them, then that's still, as a creator of the property, that's our decision. So and for different reasons, but I wonder that when Tolkien made that decision to sell something that was such a big part of his life, that must have been,
Yes, but that was like giving away his child, in a way.
Like standing at the abyss looking like, holy shnikey,
Well, I have to offer a correction, because everyone in the chat room is now correcting me. Professor Tolkien sold the rights to United Artists, not to Saul Zentz. But there's another link in that chain that happened later on, where Saul Zentz, who is now Tolkien Enterprises, they now have the rights, and they licensed to New Line Cinema, ergo to Warner Brothers, blah, blah, blah. But thank you for the correction, J.W. Braun. And he's the man who ought to know, because he actually wrote a wonderful book about The Lord of the Rings and the film adaptations. So thank you, J.W. Braun. You're awesome. And this is what live web chat is all about. Like me making a mistake and being corrected automatically. So at least I can stand corrected or sit. But
any current actresses that would be a good April O'Neil?
Oh, that was my next question. Okay, April's going to be 16 years old now, right?
Well, only in the cartoon series.
In the cartoon series.
So
okay,
the movie's going to have a different take, and I know that there are some thoughts on it, but for the movie I can't share. They haven't decided yet.
They haven't?
No.
Now, will the feature film be live action or animation?
Live action.
Live action.
Yeah.
And Han Solo says the movie better have a turtle truck that shoots pizzas. Are you serious? You guys want a turtle truck that shoots pizzas?
Man, you should see that the new, one of my favorite cartoon vehicles is the, let's see if I can pronounce this right, in the Mystery Men, which Michael Bay had a cameo in.
I love Mystery Men.
I love that movie.
That's super
It's one of my
fun
favorite, Greg Kinnear's Captain Amazing, the Shoveler, Jimmy Garofalo.
And Pee Wee Herman.
Pee Wee Herman is, what did he play? The Blue Raja, that was the other guy.
Hank Azaria?
Hank Azaria was
the
Blue
he
Raja.
can do no wrong. That guy's
The Spleen.
great.
He was the Spleen.
The Spleen, yes, yeah.
Pull my finger.
Paul Rubens,
but
the Spleen.
The Herkimer, the battle vehicle that they had in there, which was funny.
Yes.
But in the new Turtles animated movie, they have sort of a half converted subway van thing that they've made as the battle vehicle, which is fantastic. I can't wait for this.
That's so cool.
Are there any characters from the comics that have the new technologies, all the CG allows that to come to life now? To me,
what Ciro and the guys at Nickelodeon have done so well with utilizing the CG is really come up with this wonderful hybrid between this computer generated almost anime feel, if you will. I mean, they do the emoticons and those kind of things, but there's the visual component of the animated series is like, I best describe as, say, if you see a bunch of the turtles running across the rooftops on a 2D series, or other series, you might see some foreground stuff, the area that they're running, and then cutouts of buildings in the background. In some of these scenes, you can see like 20 blocks deep. I mean, it's like the full-on city details where they're jumping, running over, and like where you can do these shots where you can follow them over and down the side of the building as they're running through.
Oh, cool.
Just complete mayhem. They really fully utilize the technology, and the stylization of the characters themselves. And the movements I think are fantastic. Visually, it's bright, alive, it's electric. I think it's I look at it. I've seen so many bits and pieces in a lot of the animatics and stuff, but I think it's just going to be a massive hit. I think it's just fantastic.
You
and I
sound
don't say
genuinely
that
excited.
I am. I love going over there, and I love seeing what they're doing. I just saw some animatics for some scenes that they were working on. This is animatics are basically production stills that they sort of through flash animation animate a little bit to get the feel of how long the scene is and do the voice casting and stuff. And I was peeing my pants watching an animatic of one particular scene that they had done. It was so funny. But no, I'm completely thrilled.
Our fans are saying here, I know the cartoon was so much goofier than Kevin's original comic,
Yes.
but I loved it. And another fan made a counterpoint, but the first live-action movie from New Line was dark, like the comics. It had that. Yeah, don't you think?
Totally. No, what was great about that is that, the thing with the Turtles is much like, when I talked about earlier about the comic being sort of one version, the animated series being another version, and even the live action movie being a slightly different version. We almost had done that before, is that if you look at the original black and white series, Peter and I, even when the Turtles were becoming, a world wide licensing brand, we still kept the black and white comics black and white and very edgy and kind of written for and that audience never really grew that much. We settled in around 30,000-40,000 readers, and that's where it kind of stayed. Most people got to know the Turtles through the animated series, which was specifically written for younger audiences, and it was very much kid, to the point of being goofy. But a lot of that was a lot of people's first introduction to the characters video games and the toys. And then the live action movie that Steve Barron did was fantastic, because Steve, on purpose, he said, look, I want to try to come up with a hybrid that pays homage to the original black and white series. It has a little bit of teeth to it, a little bit of edge, but also I want to hit make sure I hit all the key points that the animated fans loved and embraced. So we had, April as a TV reporter and that stuff, but it was the way that it was lit and the pacing of the story and the general feel of it was something that, as a parent of two kids, when I go to the movies, I want to see a movie that entertains me. That if I have to sit through an animated movie, I want something that entertains me as well as my kids.
Yes.
And so that's what Steve Barron and I think quite effectively hit with the first movie. It was right up the middle. I love that.
Go ahead.
Did you see? And actually, I know some of you fans have seen Turtles Forever, which is the funniest turtle movie ever. It's Turtles Forever is it was the final the 4Kids Entertainment did a version movie that had the original 1980s animated Turtles meet the
newer
Turtles, and then they go back and meet the black and white Turtles.
Oh, that was great.
And yes, Peter and I have a little cameo at the end in voiceover and stuff.
Yeah,
but it's perfect. They just when they told me the concept, I said this will never work in a million years, but.
They pulled it off.
Oh, they pulled it off.
That was really good.
I was crying.
People, I still have my old turtle blimp in the attic. Come on, Han Solo.
Me too. I do too.
You're a collector. I love it. Okay, now here's the thing. We're already getting suggestions about casting, and it says here April in the movie. April should be played by Betty White. Thank you, JW. That's funny.
She's going to be Shredder.
Shredder. Speaking of Shredder. Now that's funny. I would love to see Betty White do Shredder, but quite legit. I think this is a legit suggestion. And Bilbo Bagshot has said Ken Watanabe would be a great Shredder.
Yes, he really would.
Watch Flags of Our Fathers, or what is it? The other one, Letters from Iwo Jima.
Yes.
You will just weep. It's stunning.
It is.
That man is stunning.
He really is. I mean, it's like I'm glad that. With the Last Samurai, they got to introduce Ken to the entire, all American audiences and international audiences. But yeah, he's just a fantastic.
Hutch says maybe they'll bring Ernie Reyes Jr. back.
I hope so. Ernie's a friend of mine, and I love Ernie. He's he'd be,
he's great.
We got to get him at least for some cool part of one, maybe a foot lieutenant or something. Maybe we'll send him to the dark side. He can be a bad guy this time. So.
Put Jackie Chan in a turtle suit? That's not going to happen.
No, I think he's too big a star.
That's funny. Now, I want to ask about your impressions of the upcoming Hobbit film, because our appetites as Ringer fans are like steadily steam rising, and people have asked, when is the next Hobbit trailer going to come out? We don't know, but we would anticipate the release of Dark Knight Rises. Well, but that's just wild speculation. I know you skipped over all the songs when you read it.
The second time, and the third time, and the fourth time.
Okay, but in our trailer, and I don't think they can do much better than the first Hobbit trailer. Yeah. We've got freaking singing dwarves. It's the best. The dwarves are singing, and isn't that the best?
It is. Well, it's like, I love that, like, when, because I watched, each time they came out with a new extended edition of the Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers. I liked it when they finally did the final extended edition where they have the singing. They put some of the singing in the tavern back.
Yeah.
You know, with Mary and Pippin
Yeah.
singing stuff. So you know, it's. But no, I you know, it's funny because I love the Rankin Bass Hobbit movie that came out. When it came out, and I always felt cheated by the Battle of the Five Armies and all the stuff at the end, because you kind of were watching it from the hilltop with Bilbo, and as the armies were fighting these little ant-like things racing around. But I wanted to see to me, by the time you got to the Return of the King, the battles that Peter Jackson did were just like, I got goosebumps now just thinking. I watch that stuff and go like, oh my.
Yeah.
Or like, the attack on Helm's Deep was like a whole.
They worked on the previs for months on the battle scene.
It was fantastic. It was like, edge of your seat the entire time. So I can
was.
imagine what they're going to do in The Hobbit with by the time we get to that. So.
Well, this is another point of contention among the purists and the people who are more pro Peter Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
The Lord of the Rings as a screenwriting exercise was certainly an exercise in redaction or taking things out and condensing, trying to, combine things and shorten and condense.
Yep.
And The Hobbit, however, for these writers, is an exercise in expansion.
Yeah.
They're going to have to greatly expand.
True.
And we all know they're adding in Radagast, the wizard, who's never been in any film version before. And all this material from the appendices at the back of The Lord of the Rings.
Wow.
And this is where we start, where the rubber hits the road. These guys are adapting something which is deeply beloved. Like now, Michael Bay and his co-creators are adapting something that is deeply beloved. So no wonder you're hearing angry people saying, "What? What are you doing? What are you doing to Turtles?" Which is what I'm hearing now. What are you doing to The Hobbit? So there's a mirror thing here.
Yeah. No. It's look, it's when I look at like the Avengers and even when Robert Downey Jr. was cast as Iron Man, it was one of those things that like, oh really, he's a great actor, is it, but it was such a great movie. John Favreau, it was when Tim Burton cast Michael Keaton, there was a lot of like, oh my goodness, and they're messing with it, and again, much beloved characters, that there is a great deal of worry, but then, so you had some hits and misses, but again, when I look what Josh Whedon has done with the Avengers, is I thought Captain America, I liked Captain America as a movie, I liked Thor as a movie, I thought it was fantastic, and the Iron Man movies were fantastic. So it's sort of it's tough when you dip your toe into that water. It's like, and to be honest, I wouldn't want to try to adapt something like that.
Do you have any veto power? I mean, if somebody does something really egregious,
nope.
You're just going to have to be comfortable with it and let it go.
Yes, it is, and it is. Okay. I'm lucky that like I'm working on now a new Turtles graphic novel that I'm doing it sort of like, so I still get to have. And Nickelodeon, thanks Nickelodeon, and all the awesome guys at IDW and Tom, is like I still get to have sort of my say in how I would tell a story, and they give me a lot of flex room. But it's like but it's at the end of the day, it's their property now, and they do what they want to do with it.
That's a little bit different than the deal that Rowling got with Warner Brothers, because Joanne Rowling had absolute veto power on certain things that Steve Kloves or the other screenwriters were doing when the Harry Potter adaptations.
Sure.
And when it came to Creature, the house elf being eliminated from movie 5,
right,
she said, no, you can't do that. He's so critical to what happens in book 7. Put Creature back in. And the filmmakers were like, come on, well, we're trying to, make this, work as a 2.5-hour film. But, I mean, I don't necessarily know what to say, but you've heard the recent rumors about Keeley, as in Feely and Keeley. Well, Keeley the dwarf, played by Aidan Turner, has now admitted in an interview in a European magazine that his character has a romantic inclination towards Toriel, the female elf, who's a brand new character added into The Hobbit who doesn't exist in the book. So a lot of really, really angry fans are commenting and blogging saying, here we go again. Peter is going to cut Tom Bombadil and ruin the... Well, guess what? He did cut Tom Bombadil, and it didn't ruin the Fellowship of the Ring. It worked out okay. So, I mean, you are sitting somewhere in this as a Lord of the Rings fan. What do you think? Added romance between a dwarf and an elf? Come on, what is that?
Well,
what's going on?
It's. I guess if they don't stray too far off the garden path, it's like I never
pretty
want.
Far.
Well, I know, but it's like how would I feel if like they had two turtles romantically involved? That would be a little creepy. No, it's sort of.
There's no romance for any of the turtles in any.
No, but it's a
really.
It's a funny thing because that was one of the things that like Ciro's idea with the animated series of having April be a younger, the turtles are 15, April 16, so that you can have. And it's always kind of been there, this crush-ism, with the turtles sort of, well, April's April's favorite or whatever, and you sort of, but it never goes any more than that, and it's almost like, I guess you want to keep that in your Tolkien universe as well, and it's, it's tough because it's like, I guess when I want to be entertained, when I want to go for the ride, and if I buy into it, that to me, if it's working. Like, despite like, it's adapting any book. To me, it's so hard to see any book adapted ever the way that you embrace it as much as you loved the original book. So it's like you're already taking a step towards like, okay, sell me on it. And if you get in there in the movie and they sell you on it and they don't chop it up or cut it up too badly, and you enjoy the ride and you do the connection and it keeps your heart racing and you still. Even though you've read the book and you know what the ending is going to be, and you still find yourself on the edge of your seat, then I think the filmmakers have done their job. You're like, whoa! But I think that you'll always have purists.
Did any of the old films or TV shows add characters that you didn't know?
With the turtles?
Yeah.
No, we had approval, and a lot of times that they were characters that we either came up with or developed, and it's stuff like like having Casey in the early animated series sound really Clint Eastwoody was kind of like, well, that's not really how I envisioned him. I think Elias Koteas in the first movie, he was the perfect Casey. But it's like, and like Judith Hoag, who played April in the first movie, I liked her April. And I also liked Paige Turco's April. I thought she brought a different dynamic to the character. That was kind of jarring. But it's like we changed whole characters. It's like the Bewitched thing. We changed Darren's.
You did. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a tough thing. And
how does it feel that fans have kind of taken ownership? They want to complain that all these changes are being made. It's your thing. Like, if you're okay with it, why aren't they?
That's a great point, Justin. Just in case you guys didn't hear, the microphone's not pointing. Justin says to the angry fans who are so demonstrative about Michael Bay's announced changes to this, maybe not changes, but this revelation to the TMNT universe. Justin just said, if you're okay with it, Kevin, then why aren't the fans okay with it? They have a sense of entitlement now that is, I think, fueled by shared electronic media.
No, and rightfully so. And we touched on it briefly early on. Is that I feel lucky to have one single fan, let alone the amount of fans that we have. I still go to the Comic-Con and I do different signings, different events, and it's like. I was with Nickelodeon in London promoting the new animated series, and the Turtle fans packed the house. I mean, it was standing room only. It's like, this is 30 years later, folks. So yeah, they have the right and they have the say and they have a vested interest. I mean, much like, when I went to see the Avengers, I was the same way. It's like, I had such high hopes for that movie to be just what it was, and it delivered on every note. So it's like, I was glad because it was, I was prepared to be let down, but I wasn't. And so it's, they have a vested interest, they have a right to say, and there are multiple camps. So I think you're always going to have sort of warring factions, if you will. So it's a bit tough to, because I love them all equally. I don't want, I understand and respect each, again, it's like you have the guys that there were guys that bought the black and white comic that when the animated series came out, they stopped buying the comic because they were so pissed off.
Really?
About the you sold out. We don't want anything to do with the animated series. You took my beloved turtle black and white cartoon characters,
and you've sold out.
So and again, you have to straddle a divide that it's like you don't want to play the politician, but you do want to try, make sure that you keep it as true to your original vision, the spirit, the intensity, and pay respect.
Even when REM left college charts and got their first top 40 hit. In the Billboard Top 100, their original fans, screamed that they sold out.
Yes.
But they didn't. I mean, REM always had integrity, with what they were, what music they were making, and I sense that also in your creativity, your creative output. I also sense that from you too. Yep. This is quite interesting. It says, it says TMNT can go wherever they want. The only thing set in stone is the origin story and the extra characters of April, Casey, and Splinter.
Yep.
Does that sound right?
Yep.
That Han Solo, welcome to our chat. You're one of our most hardcore Turtle fans. Can you see some of these comments that they're saying?
No, I love it.
Let's see. There's a lot of great comments.
There really is.
And now they're talking about Beatles albums for some reason.
Oh, I love the Beatles.
Rubber Soul? Yeah, great record.
They're talking about the difference between the American version and the British version of Rubber Soul. The track listing was different.
That's right.
Like,
That's right.
And so it's kind of like, yeah, there's going to be differences on every version.
Yeah.
Well,
Beatles did it.
yeah. Well, here's a funny factoid, and some of you hardcore Turtle fans will know this. When the Turtles originally came out in the UK, they were called Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles because they had banned the word ninja, and in fact, most of the scenes with Michelangelo using his nunchucks, because those were banned in the UK, were cut from the cartoons and from the movies.
What other
Really?
It's so many. I mean, it's we've had for many years I collected try to collect one of every Turtle licensed item. So I'd have Turtles coloring books from Turkey, Russia, South America, Japan. I mean, in Japan we did see a funny version. We did this short, I think 4-part, maybe 8-part. 4-part, I think, animated series in Japan where they made the Turtles robots because the Turtles, as they were as an original cartoon, weren't translating. In fact, Teenage Ninja is not typically a hero character in Japanese culture. I mean, a ninja was,
a hired assassin.
That would kill anybody for pennies. So the fact that he's saying Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as heroes is almost like saying and creating this whole honor code around the art of ninjutsu is kind of a Teenage Mutant murdering turtles.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird. And so it was, it was never a lot of people would see the Ninja Turtles and they go, "Oh, you must be huge in Japan. They love that stuff." And it's like, no, we weren't, and we were popular there for a very short period of time, but it never quite resonated. It was just such a weird.
Yeah.
The joke didn't translate.
That's very interesting. Well, let's see now.
We were talking about Comic-Con, how fans create their own Ninja Turtle costumes.
I love it.
We've gone as fans, and now we've gone as exhibitors with the Wandering Dot. And we have a panel this year, and
Oh yes.
But we're not creators. What is Comic-Con like for a creator?
It's the most awesome experience in it, and it's funny. I like to bring up this anecdote because it's kind of like I brought a friend there last year who had never really experienced Comic-Con, and the one thing that he had mentioned and walking around was that he goes, you know what, everybody here is so happy. They're so happy. They're so excited to be here. And I said yes. And you think about it, is that everything that they love, everything they enjoy, everything that they're probably ridiculed about in the real world, say if they're in their small hometown of wherever, Mississippi or Chicago, whatever, where being a huge Hobbit fan or a Turtles fan or something might get you ribbing and ridicule and even bullying on the schoolyard. They're in a place like Comic-Con where everybody's there to share and embrace the things that they love, and they can wear their costumes and they can meet with like-minded people, and it's such an exhilarating, exciting experience, and it really is a happy place. Comic-Con, I've been going, this is going to be my 28th year, so it's like I've seen it go from kind of a flea market with some awesome guests coming in and these little venues to this mega pop culture promotional event, which has its downsides to it. It's not as family homey sort of, all about the art of comics and that kind of thing. Is more of a pop culture thing, which is a little sad, but at the same time, pop culture is so ingrained in characters that are made into comic books are also made into video games, which are also made into toys, and everything sort of dissects and cross-sects and intersects at Comic-Con.
How do you feel the difference between a fan that created a Ninja Turtle costume in his garage and, like, let's say a studio exec that wants to make a movie because he loves Ninja Turtles so much? Like, is there a connection between those two?
Completely different planets. in let me define it just a bit more in that, any fan that, one would come all the way to Comic-Con, bring something all the way to Comic-Con, whether it be a single book to have autographed or the fact that they've spent an exorbitant amount of time creating their own turtle costume, again, from the smallest autograph to the biggest thing, is such a huge compliment to me, that it's fantastic. It's epic, and it's humbling. When you have a studio executive coming down to make a movie, you have two kinds of studio executives. I mean, the guys that grew up loving these kind of movies and wanted to make movies because they saw the Turtle movie, they saw Star Wars, they really love the craft of wanting to do that. And those guys you love, but there's other guys that are here, it's like, don't know anything about the history, the lore, anything. They come, it's like, hey, I hear this is popular and we can make money off it, so we're here to make money. Mm-hmm. You look at Josh Whedon's Avengers. I mean, that's purely a love for the characters, and that's why that movie is so awesome. It's like Ciara Neely with what he's doing with the Turtles animated series. That series is going to kick holy old butt because he loves the Turtles. You walk into the Nickelodeon studios and you see original, Mirage Studios Turtle covers all over the walls. You see, inspirations and things. It's like, when you watch the behind the scenes on the Fellowship of the Ring, the whole Peter Jackson series, is that you had, all these different actors talking about how everybody was walking around with the books. Yes. They had the books as they were making each part and sort of reading them and rereading them and sort of correcting Peter and say, well, what about this or what about this? And I think it's just, anyway, it's fantastic.
So were the
It
three,
is.
The
It
three,
is.
The three movies had different directors. Were each of them a different level of fandom?
For the Turtles?
Yeah.
No, it was sort of it was disappointing in that Steve Barron, Jim Henson, Brian Henson was the second unit director in the first movie. Steve Barron came in as really a great mind, a great director, a great visualist, he knew the Turtles. He had seen the Turtle comic before. He loved them. He saw that he could bring these characters to life thanks to Jim Henson and the Creature Shop, and make them work and and tell a great story. And with any great auteur, I think his the studio might have thought he was a little difficult to work with because it was so important to him to make the right movie. When they made the second movie, in Peter and I's opinion, that they tried hard to fix something that wasn't broken, in that they wanted a director that would listen to them, and they wanted to make something that was more like a live-action version of the cartoon. So I would say, for example, the first movie being the best all-time Turtle movie, hands down, without any doubt. And I would put the second Turtle movie in what they tried to do with it, like not having the Turtles ever really use their weapons, way too slapstick, way too jokes, although there's some great moments in there. It's not much like the screenplay that was written that we approved. I would call that sort of my least favorite Turtle movie. And then I would put the third Turtle movie, The Turtles Take Time, as in the middle between, almost, again, first being the best, the second being the least favorite, and then the third one being right in the middle. We felt that the story was solid enough. There was a lot of connectors. There was homage. There was some humor in there, and I think the movie worked as a whole piece. But the directors weren't really there because they had passion to tell a great Turtle story. They were there for a job, and except for Steve Barron.
That's the town we live in. Now, our Facebook questions that we cannot leave ignored. We have a question from Manuel Lagos, who wrote at 10:39 this morning saying, how does Mr. Eastman feel about different incarnations of his creation? There's the original universe, the cartoon show, the movies, the new comics, the new movie. Does he like taking new stabs at his old creation? Do you really like it? Do you like revisiting it like this?
I do, and I do that. Whether it be, again, you look at the original series that Peter and I did, and then the different artists that worked on the original series, and I like, whether it be Eric Talbot or Ryan Brown or Steve Murphy or Richard Corbin or even Dave Sim, different guys that had done the original series. Each one of those brought wonderful aspects to the characters that we didn't really see before, and it helped us grow, helped our characters grow. When we did the Turtles animated series, it was done very specifically for a younger audience, and we enjoyed lots of different aspects. We also got sick of the Shredder every episode, Bebop and Rocksteady, going to Dimension X, pull something, the kind of formula stuff. We kept always trying to push the formula to make the more interesting stories. So that was sort of ours. I love the version again. Steve Barron's first movie, which was halfway between the original black and white series and the animated series. And so I like the different versions. I love Kevin Monroe's animated Warner Brothers series. I thought that was a fantastic vision with the monsters and the characters and that fight between Leonardo and Raphael on the rooftop in the rain was just one of the best animation sequences I can recall in recent history.
Great stuff. That was really great.
And
I
so
I remember that.
Oh, it's
I
fantastic.
do remember that.
So I like there's always something special and cool and interesting I like in the different versions, and now it's sort of like whether it be Tom Walsh's concept of how he wanted to take this series that really excited me about the comic book series to Ciro's version of the animated series, which I think is fantastic. And then I'm really excited about what Jonathan Liebsman is going to do with the new Turtle movie. So it's there's. I like them all, but I'm not saying, oh, I like them. It's like there's all of them have been taking all of these new versions are taking the approach of respect to the original. Here's a slight tweak on it. I mean, we had April name the turtles in the comic series. We have this reincarnation aspect. We took, like April in this series, we took her. She's not a reporter. She's back in the lab. She's like a scientist, like she was in Turtles issue 2. So we changed up a few things, but it's the tonality and the structure and the respect is all there. And so.
That's great. And one more, a very intelligent question from Benjamin Doremus, who says, concerning the new film, with the technology available today and the effects thrown into the recent action flicks, as you mentioned, Avengers, will we see multiple baddies, multiple villains, and mutants from the character lineup? And he says, parenthetical, even as a child, I was sad to not see many of the various mutants from the vast catalog. Or do you think it would detract from the story? And then he says, and Andy Serkis? As in the great king of motion capture.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Yeah, what do you think?
Well, I know that there's been a lot of discussion. I don't think anything's been finalized yet. But Jonathan Liebsman is a huge fan of look at what Andy did in Rise of the Apes.
That's genius.
Seriously,
and I'm still pissed off that the Academy did not give them the Best Visual Effects Award for Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
It was fan. It was so good.
Hugo was lovely, but no comparison to what they achieved with Rise.
Yep, I
seriously.
I could not agree more.
Yeah, I mean,
so I think that it is sort of like I think that we're still defining the bad guys somewhat. Some of them have been identified. They're still deciding on if it's going to be, say, suits with CG enhancements or it's going to be full CG characters. I think it's a matter of, I feel like they're taking the same approach that like Steve Barron did with the original Turtle movie. Is that he trusted Jim Henson to bring the turtles to life. If the turtles aren't believable, if you can't see life inside that rubber suit, it doesn't work. It fails on you lost them from the word go.
Yeah.
So I think that's the benchmark. They have to work and they have to be believable, and you have to like them and want to like them and want to be behind them. So yeah, but I know that martial arts wise, we're looking at stuff like Fist of Legend and Raid Redemption and things. I mean, stuff that it's got to be it's got to be the real deal and it's got to be the best. So
I love it. I would fall out of my chair all over again if Andy Serkis or any of our friends who are from the world of Lord of the Rings motion capture to be able to work with you. That would just be the perfect collusion.
I just watched, it's funny because I loved his role as the cook, and I just watched King Kong again.
Yeah, he's great.
Not only is he awesome as King Kong and makes you cry, but I liked his characterization of the cook.
Now, before we close, we're getting ready to close the show, and you've been such a wonderful guest with us today. Kevin, you alluded a few minutes ago to some larger Tolkien-esque fantasy or bigger project you've been working on for 10 years.
Yes.
Are you at liberty to say anything more about that, or is that just the tiniest droplet of information we can get?
It's, first, thanks for asking.
Because I'm excited about that.
Thank you. It's I tell you, it's a thing as a creator. It's very difficult. I've been working on the Turtles comic book, and again has reincarnated me also to allowed me to re-embrace my love affair with comic books. I've actually pulled out a couple things that I sort of long since been developing and sitting on that after the Turtle series, I'm going to be doing a 6-issue series that I'm writing and drawing with IDW called Lost, L-O-S-T, Los Angeles, which is kind of a post-apocalyptic. It's kind of like Warriors meets Escape from L.A., a good version of Escape from L.A., and it's this great Romeo and Juliet kind of story. And then I've got another Civil War-based story that I wanted to do, but I've got this other project, this kids project, which I call it an adventure project that I've been working on for a long time. And it's taken a long time that I've done that thing where I started writing it. I drew 230 pages. I hated it. I put it in a closet for 3 years. Had an idea, pulled it back out, redid it, tweaked it, set it back in the closet. It's been this war going back and forth, and then in the last couple of years, a few connectors started coming into place, and it was weird. It's like putting together this. I can imagine, because it's a whole world of. George R.R. Martin sort of cast of characters. It's like this massive epic of this and this, and you have to pick the right beats and the right story, and everything has to connect in such a way that has to work. And just recently, I found those connectors that made it work. So it's coming to life for me now, and as a writer, we're the worst because we're our own worst critics, and we hate everything we do.
I know, yes.
But thanks for asking. Stay tuned, and I can't wait to share that with you. Have me back.
Yeah, would you?
So I would love to.
Would you please? Because when you are ready to talk about that,
thank you.
When you're ready to have this fantasy audience that loves George R.R. Martin and everything from Terry Brooks on to Ursula K. Le Guin, right? Of course to C.S. Lewis and of course Tolkien himself and everything in between. And I know there's more than a few Rowling fans out there. I'll give you credit, guys. I'd love to have you back to launch that because that would be exciting.
Done deal.
Great. And yes, and we'll be.
Oh yes, I'll be at Comic-Con. We 1529 is the heavy metal booth.
Look at when you said Raid Redemption, you got nothing but screaming exclamation points.
Good.
Oh my God, Turtles meets the Raid? OMG, OMG. Yes, all right, okay. People know what they like as far as martial arts epic.
Has to be real, and it's got to work.
It's got to be awesome.
Yeah. Awesome.
Oh yeah. Let's do this. Let's plug tomorrow's event.
Sure. But tomorrow is just, to be honest, it's a great opportunity. It's been 6 months, actually going on 7 months since I had a chance to engage in the Los Angeles fans, and so we figured that I've done lots of new Turtle stuff. I've got lots of the projects and lots of things to talk about and stuff. So I've, my friend Gaston, it's like this is the comic store I come with my kids. So he said, let's do it.
He's great.
He's great.
Yeah.
He said, let's do an event. We've got Michelangelo from the Kyoto Brothers TV series down here, and we've got Turtle books and IDW Turtle books and original hard to find rare Turtle books. Some original art will be here tomorrow, and I'll be signing, answering questions, and just hanging out like I do. Love to do.
If there was a second generation of Turtles, or if the Turtles ever had children, do you think they might name them with surrealist painters' names instead of, or impressionists? I'm farting around now. Sorry, guys.
No, I know because we've got that was early on. We would get we'd get the Rembrandt Turtles and the Picasso Turtles and the Matisse Turtles and Gauguin.
For sure.
Love it.
Well, okay. One last quick question.
Sure.
On a scale of 1 to 10. How excited are you for The Hobbit Part 1 this December?
100. It's like
100. Yay!
I can't wait. It's like it's one of those things that I'd almost camp out to be first in line to see it, but I can't. I got kids and a wife and a family and a job and stuff like that. But I'm just very excited. Yes.
Good. Me too. But that fandom still burns brightly within you.
Huge.
That's great, Kevin. I can recognize it. I can see the passion in a ringer's eyes from a mile away.
I've got the ring.
He does, yes, he does. So before we say good night and goodbye, everybody, what's our total viewership? I want to congratulate our audience for being here tonight.
Thanks for...
27,000.
We hit 27,000 viewers in an hour and a half.
Thank you very much. That's fantastic.
It is fantastic.
800 viewers right now.
800. Wow. We still have 800 live right now? Really? All right, well, guys, I mean, we do have to say goodnight. I hate to cut off 1,000 of you when you're all watching, but this is Kevin Eastman, and I'm Clifford Broadway, and you guys have been watching Torn Tuesdays, and any given Friday at 5 p.m., I mean to say Tuesday.
Oh.
Excuse me. Any given Tuesday, we're always here at 5 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time. We're going to have future surprise guests, artists, and we've got much more to come as we approach San Diego Comic-Con less than a month away. Justin, do you have any final pithy remarks, my friend?
No, you did a great job.
Yes, we're all good. Kevin, Eastman, thank you so much.
Thank you guys very much. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Looking forward to War of the Worlds Goliath. We're going to watch that at Comic-Con, and a lot more juicy bits coming down the road for fans of TMNT. Thank you, guys. My hat's off to you. Thanks for being part of the show. Good night.
Good night.